So that means there's 99.9965% of light on the electromagnetic spectrum, which everything that exists is light and information. That's everything that exists within the core of quantum physics, and from Joe Dispenza, who's helped qualify that very simple expression. The hair will be, it will be what it will be. It will develop into anything it needs to at the right moment, at the right time, through the proper movements of that which is life. Welcome to Being Insanely Great. Oh, wait, hold on. That's the channel. Welcome to the big search. The big search for happiness and freedom and all those great synonyms of language that exist to help others kind of gain perspective. Welcome. My name's
and we're off with a bang.
My name is Joe. Riley, how you doing over there, buddy?
I am doing great now that I can properly see you for the first time ever in my life.
Welcome to the show with your new spectacles of clarity. Happy to have your perfect vision join the party that is life.
It is funny when you go to an optometrist and they're trying to find the easiest way to explain to you what an astigmatism is. And they say, most people's eyes, perfectly round. Yours, kind of like the bottom of a boat. And it's like, what does that mean? What part of that am I supposed to take away? That doesn't help anything.
You've perfected the imperfection with an ancillary add-on that gives you a new dimension.
Oh my gosh! It was. I mentioned to you off coffee. It was they do the meanest thing to you at the end of your eye appointment, where it's like, okay, and now here's a nice little night scene photograph, and you're like, oh, doctor, I really must be going, but yes, your photography is very nice. And then he goes, and here it is without the prescription I'm recommending. And everything just shifts out of phase. And it looks like a Jackson Pollock painting. And you're like, oh my God, this is what I've been living with. It is the meanest trick that they can do to you. It's the most effective sales technique in the world.
Sounds like the most beautiful gift to me, quite frankly.
Yes.
You're like, oh my God, I have a new appreciation for vision and the depth of clarity that exists at such fine detail that I never realized existed.
And if they'd done it the reverse way of here's what you currently have and here's where we're going to recommend, it would not have the same effect, I don't think. You got to show them the perfection and here's what you've been dealing with for the last 30 years because you didn't want to make time for yourself to get your eyes checked. So if you're on the fence about something like that, please go do it.
Have that experience so that you truly try and gain a depth of understanding of your certain condition. By people that know the field.
Yes.
You understand. It's your guide to vision, Riley. Your guide to vision and being able to see the detail and clarity of things was your optometrist. As we try to be somewhat of a guide to you people for, the elements of life that, not many of us spend any moments understanding, but it's functioning always behind the scenes in operating every waking moment and sleeping moment of yours and mine existence. So here we go.
Joe, that was the most professional segue I think I've ever heard on this show. That was beautiful. From optometrist to we're guiding you through. Oh, magnifique.
Listen,
what
unscripted?
What should we talk?
Unscripted over here too. I don't know. It just happened.
Oh, trust me, I've tried to send Joe scripts before. It does not work out well.
No.
We got me off the cuff.
Speak from the heart. Speak from the heart. You ever hear that story about Martin Luther King where it was in the Nike documentary, the Michael Jordan Nike documentary that Damon and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck did. Air, I think it's called, on Prime Video. And so the real quick story is Martin Luther King had a speech that he was giving, and one of the coaches was at this. He said, "Oh, I'm going to this thing. I want to see this. I want to see this event." And he's like, "You should go." And he decided to go. And then it happened to be Martin Luther King giving a speech. And so he's giving a speech, and then he like knew somebody. So we got behind the scenes or something. And then like, I can't, the details of it were basically that Martin Luther King had a written speech, the I Have a Dream speech, but he stopped reading it at halfway through and then spoke from his heart. He spoke from his heart the rest of the time, and then he gave the folded up speech to this kid at the time who was the coach in the movie, and said, "Here, kid," or something like that. And it was just a beautiful, experience or story about an experience that just conveyed the value that exists when you trust your heart and you go with your heart and you speak from your heart. What's possible with many things in life, like almost everything. But that's a little kind of tidbit from one of the most profound speeches, I think, in our human history, especially America, and for equality and all of that, and so all of that we remember came from being in the moment and speaking from his heart. So yeah.
I believe they almost copy that beat for beat in the West Wing episode, where he's got to announce that he's got MS and that he's not going to run anymore, and then he folds up that speech and he speaks from the heart and says, "This is who I am. This is my dream for America. This is where I want to go." Not that the liberal fantasy of the West Wing is anywhere comparable to Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, but just interesting that they would copy that almost wholesale.
Yeah.
Anyways, Joe, any little miracles this week? Well, what's up with you?
Miracles. There's miracles every day. Every moment of life is a miracle if you can get that deep and realize that every time your heart beats is a miracle. I don't know. I always seem to have I ponder this as you ask me this, even though, and yesterday I was like, he's going to ask me my miracle of the week. And I'm like, well, I try and have many miracles throughout the day. So to pick out one, I think is part of the challenge that exists. But I mean, a couple small ones. I'm in South Florida and it's September and it's like mid 70s and able to like be out here without like in full sweat. Like that's a miracle. Last year it took till January before we could do that. So I'm thankful for that. That's a miracle. This morning before sunset, there was a beautiful butterfly that came out, a monarch butterfly. And my wife saw, she says, "Oh my God, it's a butterfly." I said, "Yes." And it landed right above on the leaf above us, which those that experience no butterflies, they're usually almost always in the majority out when it's sunny outside, and it's rare to see them. And I've never really seen one in our yard with that, timing before sunset, which is really a beautiful thing. So a few small miracles, but I think and I think that's what, and as Einstein says, you can live life as if everything's a miracle or as if nothing's a miracle. And so some of these little things might not seem so miraculous, but the reality is I've tried to live and breathe that quote and that feeling from what Einstein, said many years ago, and trying to live life as if everything's a miracle. Why not? Every heartbeat, every moment, every movement, every element of what we operate in is, has the ability to be that for you. Life is happening for you, not for any other purpose. Your consciousness and your perspective is why life is happening. And so, moment by moment, movement by movement, it is yours.
So once again this week, your miracle is every single moment. Perfect, Joe. Every single moment.
I mean, even the bad moments. I mean, bad is a judgment of an appearance of it, of a condition that's come into your life. You could say, "Oh, that bad thing happened," but then you go through the moments of your days or your weeks or thereafter. You look back and you say, "Wow, that was the best thing that ever could have happened to me," right? And so I think it's really, but then when you simplify life to a point in which you can appreciate the little moments, like, and everything is a miracle. Like, how do you actually do that? I mean, I'm still working on it. I'm not saying every moment is absolute perfection, but like, first step is accepting and qualifying the energy that is your life. Power is energy qualified. Power, you don't have power unless you qualify energy. Like, that's how it works. That's how it works with the ball. You can't see the energy going through the telephone wires, but when you turn on your light switch, it's there. Right? So that's your life. So turn on your light switch, flip that switch, and know you have the ability to qualify every moment of your existence with whatever it is that you want. Happiness, love, peace, like accomplishment, right? Whatever it is that you want. Whatever.
Joe, this is supposed to be the water cooler moment conversation where we ease people into the episode where you say, "Hey, did you have a great weekend?"
So right.
And you say, "Oh, you know what? I appreciated every single heartbeat I had."
Well, then we can edit out the last 3 minutes. Then how about that? If you want
no. I love it.
Riley, as we said, you have brought the balance to this episode and this show, and so please help share your miracle that is one of the more water cooler moments as we transform the water cooler moments to being more miraculous.
Well, maybe I'm just upset because every single moment was going to be mine as well. No, mine was.
How wonderful.
No. My little miracle of the week is being able to support friends, being in a position to be able to support friends who are doing something creative. I have a friend this week who actually he's been doing it for a little while, but he launched a Patreon for his YouTube video essay series about film. One of the things that I love is watching friends of mine, watching people who are still able to take creativity and integrate it into their daily routines, into their weekly, into monthly, into something that they can do that sustains themselves. Because when you're running a business, oftentimes a lot of those little tiny pleasures can go by the wayside. But you still get a little bit of a thrill being able to help somebody else do those sorts of things. So if anybody wants to check out Josh from Xbox Live is his YouTube channel name, which I think is just perfect because that's one that can stick with you for the rest of your life. But he did a whole thing. He released a whole videos this week about the Star Wars ring theory. If you've ever heard about this, basically the idea that all episode 4, 5, and 6 and episodes 1, 2, and 3 were sort of written in this way that sort of each one of them connects together as part of a hero's journey or a more ancient style of technique where the adventure happens from you leaving your own encampment into something uncomfortable and then coming back to the same place where you were, but just as a changed person. There's a lot of traditional traditional storytelling that sort of goes through that model. And then they say that the ring theory is supposed to kind of like be like that, but each one of the films mirror each other. And then he tries to incorporate the new trilogy that I think has been much maligned from not living up to everybody's expectations, and showing how those three also sort of fit into this new way of thinking about the series in the way that George Lucas was trying to express himself back in the day. And I find that really interesting because that is something that did not exist on the internet before he put it out there. Like it's this little passion project of his that he's now put a lot of time in to share it with people. I love it when people can do that. And I think, there's a wonderful quote by Kevin Smith, and I'm not a huge Kevin Smith fan of his work, but I love his passion and the way that he talks about creativity, and like just that idea of it costs you nothing to be positive about somebody else's project when they start talking about it. It costs you nothing to give them a little bit of energy to help them sort of go out there and do more of it. And maybe, a lot of times it's not going to come out to something, but maybe you give somebody that spark that then goes on to become, for him, it was Clerks. For other people, it could be, an independent movie. It could be a video essay. It could be, getting into comedy. It could be doing music. It could be all these different things. But it costs you nothing to be positive about putting that energy towards them to make it so that they can do something that they're really passionate about. So I love being able to do that and being able to help out, a little bit financially. I think he's asking for like $3 a month or something like that. It's not much.
That's super generous. I mean, and we'll take it besides the money. I mean, this like you said, Riley, the ability to be able to kind of facilitate that, right, and to be able to follow and foster creativity, and sometimes even before we can get to a place where we can even start thinking about being creative, because we've been sucked into the innards of the race of life, is just being able to have peace without like so much nonsense coming our way with negativity, or with burdens that we have at work, or people that are pulling us in different directions because of the circumstances of the condition of culture or business, or how it operates, or whatever, right? And so just like giving you a miracle that kind of builds to some extent off of what you said. And for me at this week also is Anton, who works with me. He's an incredible person. He shared with me he's getting married tomorrow. Congratulations, Anton and Jen. And he said this is the first time in his professional career that he's been able to like take time off without having like this thing in the back of his mind that he's going to get text messages or calls or have to check his emails and all of that. And he said last time he took a vacation a year ago in the south of France, because he lives in Scotland, so it's easy for him to go there. He was bombarded nonstop with work, and he wasn't able to enjoy himself whatsoever. So he was super thankful to and shared and expressed that with me. And I'm happy to be able to do, because that's what I want. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants the ability to have time off from work or your responsibilities, to be able to have peace and the ability that everything's handled. There's nothing you got to worry about, and then of course come to a place in which, yes, you can absolutely, whether you want to just be peaceful or get married or do whatever without having all of these, things that are going to come in that you're going to have to deal with, or, using that time to be creative and doing whatever you want to do, because you can have, and you can be anything you can imagine in every moment. And so having the freedom to do that is powerful and incredible and beautiful. And so, thank you for creating an opportunity for me to realize a complimenting miracle, Riley. Thank you. And congratulations on your Star Wars. Is that Dan or is that Josh? Who is that? What'd you say his name?
So Josh, I'm not sure if he wants his last name out there. I'll just leave it from Josh from Xbox Live. Everybody knows him. He's Josh from Xbox Live.
Yeah, Josh, you can edit Dan and Josh out. I didn't mean to throw that in there, but congratulations, Josh, on your Star Wars passion project. The ring theory that Riley, you were just talking about. It sounds like someone's trusting the unknown was part of that, and then coming back to a place in which you have so much more wisdom once you trusted the unknown to reflect on that and see the perfection that exists if you allow that to be something that takes you through the flow of life and through the flow of certain conditions for things to happen for you. Interesting how successful that franchise was based on that framework of construction, huh? How so many of us innately appreciate that, and it's shown in the results that exist from the mass appreciation of Star Wars, right? To have that be the framework and foundation of the construction of the film is a pretty beautiful and inspiring and like awakening thing too, if you can take some of those elements and apply them to elements in your own life, right?
What is also funny, and I'll keep this brief, is I started watching, because we ran out of our regular humor TV show the other night, which was Raising Hope. We decided to go backwards and watch Greg Garcia's first TV show, which is My Name is Earl, which is basically setting into motion this whole idea for this podcast, which is just putting good vibes out into the world, and you will get good vibes back. And I mean, it's funny watching it start from, I think it's literally him starting about, he talks about karma, but just that idea of sort of stopping the negative energy, being this, letting those waves of negative energy crash up against him and pushing back with positivity. But yeah, no, so we start watching My Name is Earl and just watching this character. And I mean, the entire series is written around, Joe, all these things that you talk about, which is giving your attention to positivity and not to negativity, and watching how that can have these ripple effects in ways that you would never, ever, ever expect it. And the nice thing about the writing on that show, and the nice thing about having lots of free time in the evenings, is you can get to episode 15 very quickly and see that they start bringing back characters over and over and over again that have then, you first meet them in a certain spot in life, and then he interacts with them again, setting them on their own course. And so their own positivity then starts to come back and help him out in a way that would have never been able to happen if he had not have first approached them and say, I wanted to right this wrong that had happened with you beforehand. And so the writing on that is really interesting because it ping pongs in a bunch of different, like it's constantly asking what would happen if this should change somebody's life in a certain way, and then bounce that back and then bounce that back, and like all these different ripples of just good intentions going out into the world. And then what happens when those are not enough to overcome a bad intention?
I mean, a moment can change the course of your entire life. Like people, there's been, I've been watching Coach Prime on Prime Video. No, of course that's on purpose, I'm sure. Mr. Deion Sanders, go Knowles. But yeah, no, he focuses on believe. His whole thing is I believe. And look, what he's done from we're recording this, he's 3-0 at Colorado. Nobody ever thought that was possible after being 1-11 last year. And some of the inspirations that his energy and his disposition and his character and who he is has brought to the people, at Jackson State, at now Colorado, and it's everywhere it's like it's so inspirational, right? And for some people in these programs, and this is just an example, but for anybody can, for whatever it is that you want to achieve in your life, or you don't know what you want to do, or something's happening, or something tragic could happen right now that you think is the worst thing, but it could be the best thing. But at the end of the day, how you qualify it and how you react to it and how you understand it and how you the moments and movements that you have after that you think, feel, and act will send your life in that trajectory, and it'll turn, it'll curve, it'll do whatever it's got to do. But that could be a defining thing, and it could be a great thing. It could be an incredible thing. And we always, then there's this stigmatism almost that we feel like it needs all these, there needs to be a struggle. There needs to be pain. There needs to be all these things. It only has to be that if you believe that. that's the actual fact of life, and how the laws of life and the laws of the universe work, from a quantum physics perspective, from all of that. And so, what you believe is what you get, and what you give is what you get. And the reality is any one moment can be a defining moment, or can be a passing moment. It's whatever. And you'll have moments that come and it'll be the same experience, but you'll have a different mindset than you did the last time it happened, and it'll affect you differently. It could be you watched a movie. It could be you listened to a song. It could be, an actual life experience with some set of conditions that, was one thing and then was another thing and you reacted totally different. It's life is very, very simple in that sense, that only the present moment is what defines you and how your condition will apply to that, or will be received from that.
Now watch this transition. So I think this is what you're saying is exactly right. And one of the most dangerous things that I see, coming. So I used to do a lot of music stuff. I still like to produce music every once in a while. It's a weirdo electronica. You don't need to go seek it out, especially if you're here for a positivity podcast. But one of the things that I find with so many of the people who are in these sorts of realms is that they think that they need to suffer for their art. And what they're actually saying is, when I'm very down in the dumps is when I'm paying attention most to my art, and that is when I'm catching these fleeting pieces of inspiration. It's because I've got nothing else going on, so I can concentrate on this one thing completely. And I used to feel the exact same way about that, but then didn't really change for me until I started up the business side of the podcasting and realizing that I needed scaffolding to be successful every single day at the business. And then when I took that and I applied those same principles of, for me, it was working in digital audio workstations. So let's make sure that I've got a template made up. Let's make sure that I'm not spending, if I want to go and create some music for a while, that I'm not spending 45 minutes setting up, my virtual instruments and my vocal effects and all these little things that I know that I'm going to use. Let me make sure that that's built into it so that when I start up the program, I'm already that much further ahead. And so I've built up the scaffolding to the point where I can now catch even more moments of that little inspiration because I'm not concentrating on other things. Even though when I was back then, I was really low and I thought, oh, I'm really concentrating on my music. What I was concentrating on was all the wrong stuff, was all the stuff that should have been built in and innate for me to begin with. Was like, oh, I need to fiddle around with this filter. No, I could have set that up ahead of time and built myself a roadway for success. And so that's one of the things that I think today we're going to talk about this article and we're going to get into it, but just
a scalable framework, a scalable
framework.
Yes.
Yeah.
A system, something that you felt, again, you made those decisions. And that's part of it is we get into things in which we have to make the same decisions every single time we get into something. Like we got to go through the same level of decisions, but we know we're going to give the same answers every time because that's who we are and that's what we want. So anytime we can automate or scale or create as scaffolding, a framework, a system, a structure, like to have that be done, then that's solved for, to your point, and then allows us to so much focus on the other things that we didn't have time or we didn't have the attention and the energy to focus on because we were so caught up in all the things that we end up doing every single time that should be solved for already by something that is already existent and already set the foundation for. Beautiful.
You don't realize how much of a cognitive load all that negativity and all that just setup and preparation can be on you until you figure out a way to offload it. And once you do, it's all you're going to want to do. It's going to be, you're going to say, if I can get this level of success doing just this little thing, what if I took that and applied it to the next 3 things that I'm going to do, the next 5 things that I have to do. And then it becomes this snowball effect that just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. And everybody who works with me hates it because every 6 months I'm introducing to them a completely different template that they then have to go through and figure out, okay, what does all this mean? It's changing up our workflow completely. But then, 3 weeks of working on it, they can't imagine a different way of working on it because it speeds things up so much.
Yes. Appreciating the change is not to have it be a change for, additional work, but a good change, a change that's going to facilitate, you to have more time to do something and think about the things you want to think about and focus on the things you want to focus on. I mean, a super simple example correlating to that, Riley, is cruise control, adaptive cruise control. The cruise control that slows down for you and stops for you and doesn't just keep the speed. Oh my God. If you've ever been like on a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour road trip with adaptive cruise control that slows down to a stop and then does all that, and you don't have to worry about slowing down. I mean, talk about the cognitive workload that exists. Like, you don't really realize it, but then when you get to where you're going and you realize, man, I was always so tired after even a 3-hour drive, now I don't have that fatigue anymore. It's really an amazing thing, but that's a correlating example to something that's super simple that we don't even think about and we just take for granted. Oh, this has this new feature, but somebody really spent, like, you can imagine the amount of time and effort and focus and energy that went into creating that so that you can now have that freedom of whatever it is that you want that you might not even realize until we talked about it right now. You don't have attention. We don't understand things unless our attention is brought to them. Like that's literally what it is. And the more we can appreciate and understand that very simple fact, the more we start to have and live more miraculously.
Joe, let me magically change over my scene for a second.
Magically? I love magic. Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Look at that.
And look at today's, it's an old, insanely great graphic. I will promise to switch this up every single time. We're still working on
Lewis Hamilton, and is that Aristotle or Plato over there? I don't know what we got over there. Thank you, Lewis Hamilton, for your expression of driving. Amazing.
I'll say hi to him when I'm down in Vegas for my wedding during the F1 weekend. He's an F1 driver, right?
Yes. He's exactly. And he said, my driving is an inner expression of my feeling. And I'm like, wow, then you're really connected with that infinite intelligence that's powering your life, man. Good for you. That's amazing.
So let's talk about one way of scaffolding better mindset today. And that is, I found this from neurosciencenews.com, which looks like it hasn't updated its its logo since the GeoCity days, which I for one am really in favor of. Is suppressing negative thoughts a path to improve mental health? And this is really interesting because we so often hear that we're not supposed to just suppress negative thoughts, or no, don't suppress negative thoughts because they're going to come back even worse. And this is suggesting, no, what you can do is if you train your brain to suppress negative thoughts in a way that you know that you're dealing with it, it frees up your load. You don't have to think about it as much. And when those things come up again, you've already thought of interesting ways to deal with the situation in ways that don't impart a negative connotation to your thoughts about it. So a new study suggests this challenges the traditional beliefs surrounding the suppression of negative thoughts and mental well-being. Researchers trained participants to suppress fears and worries, observing that these thoughts became less vivid and participants' mental health improved. Contrary to prevalent clinical beliefs, the suppression of fearful thoughts did not lead to their intensified return. Participants who practiced the thought suppression technique beyond the study continued to see benefits in their mental health. So they took 120 volunteers worldwide and asked them to write down, I think it was 20 negative experiences, 20 neutral experiences, and 20 positive experiences, and give them one descriptive word and one sort of vivid word about it that brought up images in their mind. And they went through a training session call with them. I think it was once a day for a week or something like that, where they were trained with coping techniques to help them block any vivid pictures, any imagery about the negative things that they were thinking about. So don't think about, if you thought you were going to catch COVID-19, don't think about hospitals. Don't think about all the vivid things, all the things that were most vivid in your memory or in your thought process about catching COVID-19. They trained you to stop picturing that as vividly and then to emphasize and overemphasize and really describe in great detail all the positive things that you sort of wanted to see happen in the next 2 years in your life. And what happened is...
Sounds like an attention shift.
It's an attention shift. That's exactly what it is. It's so funny what all these different... Joe, it's like, I think I've brought this up on the podcast before. It's that old adage of, 20 blind men all trying to describe an elephant, and they're all touching a different aspect of it, and they're all describing something completely different. And they're all correct in the one thing that they're describing, but they don't realize the whole of it. Or I saw Peter Gabriel in between the recording of last session and this session. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm an old progressive rock head. And Peter Gabriel, one of the fun things about him is he completely revolutionized MTV's music video, stuff like that in his 40s. Like his first like number one hits came when he was like in his late 30s to early 40s. And that's when he changed the face of young people's music. Which is just hilarious because now you are at a concert with him where he's in his 70s and you're like, boy, I hope he plays something from when he was 45 soon. It's like, who was saying that about modern rock stars, right? Who's saying that about anybody? Boy, I hope they get it when he was getting his first osteoporosis checks. But But anyways, one of the funny
Don't
things
need to bring up negatives, Riley.
he no, he's being proactive. He was he was getting those checks ahead of time. So one of the fun things about that show is he's really embracing AI and the idea of what that's going to be creatively going in the future. And one of the things that he said that I thought was really nice is that there was a period of time where all the scientific study, everything that you could read about was about how the Earth was the center of the solar system and everything revolved around that. And we now know that it is in fact the sun that is the center of our solar system. The Earth revolves around that. And he goes, but we still think that humans are the center of, the world. And we are soon going to be switching over to realize that we're just orbiting around something much more important than ourselves, but we're not there yet. And I mean, I think that's his sort of acknowledgement that he's touching part of the elephant and doesn't know what it is completely. And that's what this, are we suppressing negative thoughts? What they're talking about is meditation in a different form. It's all about strengthening your mind. It's all about creating this muscle of focus, creating this muscle of attention, but just in different ways. We're all talking about it in completely different ways, and we're all exercising it in different ways. But it's all coming back to the exact same thing, which is what, Joe? Which is what?
I just need to go back for a minute to the elephant metaphor, because I'm like, that's an incredible metaphor. Wait a minute. I feel like you had a momentum there, and I like terrorized it. Your thoughts and your feelings control your world. You are the center of your world. You are your very own like commander of your world. Everybody's in their own world. You're in your own world, right? So like, if from a physical perspective, is the sun the center of our solar system? 100%. Is from a but as you just described, like we're moving around the Milky Way and we're this little speck on the circle of the Milky Way. It's going to take 200 million years for us to go all the way around that Milky Way. So from a physical perspective, you'll for eternity, you'll be looking at how that fits into the larger piece of the puzzle. The funniest part is when that's why I kind of got caught up on the elephant part when you were talking about that, is like, in a sense, like if you utilize the elephant as all light on the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Humans can only see 0.0035% of all light on the electromagnetic spectrum. So that means there's 99.9965% of light on the electromagnetic spectrum, which everything that exists is light and information. That's everything that exists within the core of quantum physics. And, from Joe Dispenza, who's helped qualify that very simple expression. Like, think about that. Like we are looking outside around us into everything that we see with only 0.0035% of the information of what actually is. Yet we're using everything around us to define how we operate, which when we go inside and we feel the energy of life and we function from our heart, from the energy that powers our heart, that beats our heartbeat, that functions our entire conscious awareness. Beautiful butterfly. Like it turns everything on its head. It turns everything on its head. And to have an entire, think about it. So what are we touching? We're touching a hair on, near the foot of the elephant. That's all we know. That's all we're judging the entire existence of our life and our world and our universe on, based on what we see, because we all need to see it before we believe it, right? But if you believe it, talking about Coach Prime and Deion Sanders, like, look what's possible when you can do it. Look what's possible when you believe in yourself, when you believe in what you're doing, when you believe you're giving it your life, you're giving it your energy, you are giving it your focus, right? And so what you focus on, you breathe life into. And when you breathe life into negative stuff, like, what do you think that becomes? That becomes your world that surrounds you, because it gains momentum, and it gains that momentum. Energy is momentum. Anytime you watch a sporting event or any type of thing, it's all about momentum. In business, momentum is the most important thing you can get, right? And so like when you can get momentum and you realize that it's positive momentum, and you have the ability to kind of flip that switch and get yourself into a place in which you're experiencing much more frequently the positive things. It's amazing. The one thing I'll say on the headline of that article, and I shared this previously, because I didn't read the article, I skimmed through it, and I saw the first thing I said, this is an incredible concept. But the word suppression, what is suppression? I don't know the dictionary definition, but from what I understand, Riley, maybe you can look it up, pull it up for us real quick. But from what I understand about suppression is you're going to, as you explained previously, like you're going to push it down. It's like it's going to be there and it might pop up at some point later, right? That's what suppression means, right? What's it say, Riley?
The action of suppressing something, such as an activity or publication. So let's go suppressing.
How about
forcibly put an end to?
Oh, putting an end to. Okay. Well, that's great. So, I mean, I guess throughout my own like life education, suppression means you're going to put it down and it has the ability to kind of resurface and pop back up. And, to which I'd say, every word we use is a qualifying factor of how our consciousness perceives it and the truth that we accept. Every word. So the word matters. Right. And so if we have in our own psyche, so in my psyche, suppression means it's going to come back. But like you might not, you might have that dictionary definition in which it goes away. Right. So for me, I want to overcome those negative thoughts. I want to annihilate them. I want them to be gone forever. Gone forever and never have the ability to have the power over me in my own present moment, to which those vivid images are populating my thoughts and then thus creating feelings in which I do not want. Right. And you have that ability. We all have that ability. If you have a heartbeat, you have that ability. Right. It's just believing that you can do that. Nothing's possible until you believe that you can do it. And if you look at all the great things that you've achieved in your life, you say you really reflect on it. You'll come to realize that you had belief. You believed you could do it. You had confidence, and you did it, and you achieved it. So it's very much the same with thoughts. It's very much the same with feelings, and it's just a matter of believing it's possible. And then you try it and you do it. Or you can read all the stuff that says it's not possible, or listen to all the people that say it's not possible. And then that becomes your condition and what you accept as your truth, thus your consciousness, thus your, sequence of events and moments in life in which you follow that path, which is fine. Everybody makes their own choices.
I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this article is I am not the sort of person who, which is depicted in film and television so much, where you sit down with psychiatrists and they say, tell me about the worst parts of your life. Let's go through and discuss it. When something really bad happens to me, I hate dwelling on it. I hate just sitting in that feeling of negativity. When something negative happens to me, I want to take a moment to acknowledge it. And then I want to go, okay, what's next? What's the next step after this? How do we bounce back? How do we use this as an opportunity?
How do I use
How does this become, what is the next thing what are the steps that we do to take around this? Because I didn't always hate doing this. I used to love wallowing in self-pity. I think everybody goes through a period. It's called being a teenager, where you just love wallowing. That nobody understands.
We gained the momentum.
We
gained the momentum of being in that energy. That's exactly what we did. 100%.
And you've got, hormones coursing through your body like is never going to happen again, because your mind is being expanded. It's growing in a way that you're not familiar with. And so it's really, really easy to get stuck into those sort of self-deprecating rhythms a lot of the time, which is, talk about inflating metaphors. Our elephant one has just gone through the roof. Another idiom. Oh my gosh, Joe, writing without idioms is the hardest thing in the world. We discussed this off camera. I apologize. But this is the thing where it is, if you can just train your brain to start going, okay, this is the thing that's happened. I just need to figure out what's the next step to make this a positive again. That is just, you ever watch those videos of someone who, I find this fascinating. They're able to stop ripples of traffic in a traffic jam so that people behind them can drive perfectly smoothly, because they sort of drive at a rate that's slow enough that the ebbs and flows of regular traffic, of stop and start braking, so they can actually break a traffic jam up just by their own sort of cognizant driving of being
And
in
most
that
of us have
situation.
probably done that. If you just like to coast at 2 miles an hour during a traffic jam, you've probably done that. You don't even realize it. 100%.
And you're starting to absorb all that back and forth energy, but everyone behind you benefits from you being able to, you know, sort of recognize that you're in this situation where it's stop and start just progressing at a better situation. And then you're not thinking so much about the driving itself. Other people behind you are having a smoother experience. It's that ability to absorb something. And, you know, judo, like, again, introducing another idiom, another
Judo? Can we judo those negative thoughts and say you have no power? Negative thoughts. You have no power, negative thoughts. As soon as you give it life and give it attention, you're qualifying it with your power that is your energy. And so power is energy qualified. So when you give it your energy, which means your attention, you are qualifying it, you are giving it power. And then that power is then used over you. And so when you realize that and you say to all those negative things, you say, you have no power, you have no power, then you can use that condition and use that experience and use those things for you to say, all right, like this has happened. All right, get it, accept it, you know, whatever. Like, how can I use this for my benefit? And then you train your brain to start thinking differently when those things happen. And then when those things happen, you're like, it doesn't affect you from an emotional side nearly as much as it used to. And then it starts fizzling away into a thing in which when those things happen, they'll start happening less frequently. And then when they do happen, you'll say, this has no power over me. Like I'm the center of my own universe and my own world. I was walking at the beach the other day, and this lovely older lady was walking, and she says, nothing has proven to me that I'm not the center of the universe. And she had a smiley face hat on, and she was walking with a cane. She's the sweetest little lady. And I'm like, I love that shirt. But you know, like it's such a true thing to the extent, and from a consciousness perspective, from a physical perspective, yes, we are orbiting the sun, and that's part of the Milky Way, and that's part of this infinite center of, you know, the universe that you know, we look, the James Webb thing where they saw 100,000 galaxies in that beautiful picture that came out 5 months ago. That's like they said it. They said that's a grain of sand. You put a grain of sand and you pull it up to the sun. That's what that shows. 100,000 galaxies. What? What? Talk about mind blowing. Talk about not having, you know, talk about touching parts of the elephant and not knowing. Oh my God. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Believable.
I mean, if we really want to get into it, let's talk about the double slit experiment.
Hello.
There could be an electron fired from an electron beam gun, fired from something from a star off in space that's been traveling for billions of years. And the second between it goes through a double slit and it hits a screen, your thought about it could change its how it's perceived completely. And it's been traveling for billions of years. And just that 1 second of your thought
Talk
changes.
about an inflection.
Yeah.
Talk about an inflection. Talk about a moment that has the ability to think, you know, and the fact that you cannot prove that my conscious experience is what you're observing, and I cannot prove that your conscious experience is what I'm observing. As these beautiful doves land behind me, you could see the birds that I'm always talking about. I flipped the camera today so you could see them land behind me. But yeah, like it's such a powerful thing to realize that once you understand life is that simple, that your thoughts and your feelings and your actions are what control your entire life. You have the ability to control that. And if you think about it, you are always in your own world. Everybody is. But when you allow human suggestions and human opinions, and we give more value and more power to those opinions and those thoughts than what we believe in ourselves, then they start to rule us. Then whatever is negative or whatever it is, then starts to become our reality, because that's what we accept for ourselves. We don't need to do that. You do not need to do that. Try it.
Joe, what are some ways that we could practically build some scaffolding of positivity this week, this 10 days that we're now on, that people could take away from? What are some simple things that maybe you started doing that other people could start doing?
Well, one thing I started doing was I started trying to feel when when one of those things, come and we just talked about negative thoughts, but it could be a criticism, it could be a judgment, it could be, and because every one of those things is going to come back. Are we throwing a good boomerang or another than good boomerang? And so, like, every little criticism and every little judgment, it might seem small, might seem trivial, but it's all the small things. All the teams that have all won championships, what do they say? It's all the small things, like being disciplined on all the small things. And not trying to transform your entire life condition and how you approach things in one moment, in one day. It doesn't happen like that. You have to deeply understand it. You have to try and understand it. But if I'm going to say one thing, it's trying to have the awareness to recognize when you're doing that, because we just do it. We don't think about it. We just do it. And it flows out of our mouth or it affects us, and we allow it to affect us a certain way because we're conditioned. We're conditioned to have that be. So the best thing you can start with is to just try and be aware. Try and be aware when you've actually like made a criticism. Try to be aware when something's come to you and it's like negatively affecting you, and then like wake up and say, whoa, why is this like, whoa, you have no power. You have no power. This thing that happened to me, this condition, right? And it might not, and it might be challenging at first. It might be easier for some conditions than other conditions, depending on the depth of emotion that you've given it life and given it power, whether it be brief or whether it be over years or weeks or months or days or whatever. And so that will be variable depending on the thing that happens and the moment that you're experiencing. But the first step is trying to have an awareness. Trying to have an awareness of all of the thoughts that are coming through your head, all the feelings that are happening, all of the words that you say, all of the actions that you do. And you don't do 100% of them, but if you can catch, 2 or 3 things a day in which you said that you're like, I was being critical. I wasn't being, as you said earlier in the show, Riley, I wasn't like giving them a good, like, yes, like you can do that. Absolutely. Good for you. I'm so happy for you. Instead of saying, oh, I don't know why they're doing that. Like they shouldn't be doing that. Like, that's not your business. Let them do their thing. Let them do their thing. Right. Like that's none of our business to judge or to criticize. Like, when we get into that, we get into a habit of forming opinions, and then all opinions are inconclusive. Facts are true statements. So the fact of the matter is like when someone has something that they're passionate, that they're trying to do for themselves, like that's a decision that they've made for their own life. You having an opinion, which is technically a criticism or a judgment, like has no value to you, but does have the ability to influence them, to which it might send them on a path to where they lose belief in themselves. Do you want to be responsible for that? No. Why not be someone that's fostering goodness and fostering encouragement and like, don't letting it be any sweat off your back. Like good for them that they're owning their moment and they're making a decision for themselves to go do something. Good for them. Whether you think it's crazy or whatever, like have no opinion. Just give them Godspeed. Go do your thing. You know what I mean? Like so, but going back to it, like having the awareness to realize and understand how you're operating and how you respond to things and how you let things affect you in its most basic instance is one of the most powerful things that you can do.
I have a great example of this, which is in the audio editing business. People will come to you and say, however it is that they're interpreting the sound, and they will never use technical terms. They will only use terms that they think it's the first time that they've ever had to describe the way a sound sounds. And so you get wild descriptions of this thing sounds fuzzy. It sounds scratchy. It sounds, we had somebody say, like, it sounds like it's coming through a balloon once. Now, I had no idea what that means. But what you then have to start doing is taking that criticism and seeing beyond the words of it and seeing what it is that they're actually asking for. So
I would say that's an observation. Like I would say like that's a try, and that's part of trying to understand the depth of things. It's like trying to see what's an actual observation, because that's a fact, right? It's like here's the sound I hear. I'm not criticizing the sound. I'm trying to observe what it is and then express that in a way in which the people I'm communicating with understand it, right? And that's trying to get the difference between observations and criticisms. And then once you start to understand the difference, it becomes so much more powerful, because then, having an observation and not having any emotion tied to it is one thing. Having a criticism in which you're sending your energy to that thing with whatever it is, negative, like, it's not going to be supportive.
Well, I mean, in this case, it would be that they're asking for it to be corrected.
Right.
They're asking for this. So then you have to then take in that criticism, that observation, and figure out what is it that they are actually looking for. And that can really expand your mind and really help you empathize with people in a way that you would never normally do, because you're now thinking the way that they would perceive things. And once you're able to do that, it opens up your mind to tackling problems in a whole bunch of different ways. If you have to figure out what it means for someone and to successfully deliver something back to them so that it doesn't sound like it's coming through a balloon anymore, when you have no idea what that means, but you have to start sort of figuring out that perspective and then fixing it for them, and then you deliver it back to them, and they will never know that the technical term was like there was too many plosives on the audio recording. It's not their job to know that was the case. You just now know you have another tool in your tool belt for the next time something sounds like it's coming through a balloon. And then you've solved somebody else's problem, and you've grown a little bit in that process. So anytime the next week, if you get a little bit of criticism,
great point.
Look at all the different ways that this could be coming from. It. Consider its source. Consider what that person might have been thinking when they start to say that to you. Because then if you can get into their mindset, you can deliver something back to them that is going to be a much more positive experience than if you start, like in my case, it would be sending a bunch of emails back and forth. Well, technically there is no balloon on the recording. What is it that you're actually looking for? That just frustrates everybody. Just figure it out, take it internally, judo it, touch the elephant, become a quantum physicist, deliver it back to them in a great way. We've covered all the bases that we talked about this episode, Joe.
In other words, appreciate and understand the depth and breadth that exists with perspective, and that you don't have all of it in every moment to be able to criticize and send anyone down that path, right? As these beautiful, do you see these doves behind me? Isn't it magical? I hear them, and then I see them in the corner of my screen. I'm like, oh, I moved out of the way and they're right behind me. But yeah, it's like when you can understand perspectives and you can consider those perspectives, it almost removes any inclination that you might have been conditioned to have to criticize or judge, because you're like, oh, okay, I can see, no matter what it is, if you can foundationalize your moment with that, all right, let me try to understand what the heck they're trying to talk about here, or trying to say, or trying to express, or trying to achieve, as you said, which is an incredible way to approach any condition in business, in life, because you know what that does? That prevents back and forth. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What are you trying to do? So it's like you're trying to place yourselves in their position and trying to understand why it is they might be saying that. And in doing that, what have you done? You've almost embodied them so that you're not going to have 6 questions after you say, what's a balloon sound? What do you, you're trying to really understand. You're trying to understand. And as the great Marvin Gaye said in his song, what's going on? What's going on? Right? Go watch our video. What's going on? Right? And if you can really say, what's going on here? And you try and understand, and then you say, okay, I kind of get it. Well, let me try and get deeper. Let me try, what are they trying to achieve with this, or what, and then once you do that, as you just said, it all comes with understanding, first realizing there's perspectives, second, trying to understand the perspective. And then all of a sudden you have no inclination to ever criticize or judge, because there's no reason to. It doesn't add any value to your present moment, because it just imparts a negative connotation and feeling. And you're not giving that to anybody else to then impart on their journey in which it could have a negative effect. And so before you know it, all the negative things you're not contributing to them, and then they're not happening for any other people or happening to you, because you didn't send them out there, and that negative boomerang isn't going to come back to you. So good for you. Isn't that magical? Beautiful.
What else needs to be said? I think that's a good the capstone for the episode.
That's a good way to cap it off, and help people consider perspectives. and, elements of life in which we're trying to kind of uncover, peel back the layers of depth that exists within the simplicity of life, of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. It is that simple. It is that simple. If you believe it.
So what better ways to send some positivity out in the universe than to like, comment, and subscribe?
Yes.
What?
Be positive. Yes. That's super simple. Super simple. Have a magical week, everyone. Have a 10 days. That's the cadence we're on now. So have a magical week and a half. Be good, do good, feel good, and have an amazing day. Bye.
Perform judo on an elephant.
Yes, do that.